So welcome to our listeners. This is Sherry Forsyth, a peak performance coach, and I'm doing a whole series on health and health-related issues where I'm interviewing sufferers of various illnesses, particularly the illnesses that are invisible. So in other words, the people don't look sick. And also I'm interviewing various medical practitioners, because the whole goal of these sessions is to get people speaking about the issues that normally they don't speak about. So I welcome today my very oldest friend, Janice from George in South Africa. Welcome, Jan.
Thanks, Sherry. Lovely to speak to you.
And sometimes through this connection, which is not 100%, we are going to get a little bit of distortion of sound, but between Jan and myself, we are going to make sure that we remind each other to repeat things that might have been a bit distorted. So I ask the listeners for a little bit of patience with regards to that. So I think that we're going to jump right in, Jan, if you are happy with that.
Absolutely.
So I want to ask, what is the name of the illness that you've been diagnosed with, and what actually is it?
Sherry, I was initially diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis by the first rheumatologist I went to see near to Cape Town, which is quite a distance from where I live. And then after that, after seeing a second rheumatologist for various reasons, he suspected reactive arthritis. Now, I'll just briefly explain that reactive rheumatoid arthritis is a form of inflammatory arthritis, which is joint disease due to inflammation that occurs in reaction to an infection by certain bacteria.
Okay.
Now, rheumatoid arthritis, the way I understand it, it basically has very similar symptoms. Rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disease in which the body's immune system, which normally protects its health by attacking foreign substances like bacteria and viruses, mistakenly attacks the joints. So basically, the immune system goes faulty. I am still not absolutely sure, and my rheumatologist isn't either, what caused it. It is very, very difficult for anyone to figure that out. But I do have rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay, so you don't have the reactive arthritis.
That is quite iffy, Sherry. They went through, it was a process of elimination. I went through many blood tests. I had chest x-rays to eliminate the possibility of TB. They were trying to find if there was something in my blood or in my body with a lot of tests that was causing an infection, but I understand it's very, very difficult to pick up. But the bottom line is, in my mind, after looking at all my records, I have rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay, so maybe we should just stick with that train of thought. What were the first signs in your body that things were not going so well? And then if you can maybe talk a little bit about what the signs were and your journey to final diagnosis, which will maybe be putting a little bit of, shedding a bit of light on the different tests and processes you went through.
Yeah, sure. Sherry, the first signs, I've always been a pretty healthy person, apart from the odd aches and pains and whatever. I've always exercised, never had a problem with that. But strangely enough, early 2016, I had a feeling that I had little things crawling all over my skin. It was the most weird feeling with no obvious bites or anything. So I went through the whole process of thinking, oh my gosh, there's something funny in the house. I even was putting clove oil all over my skin. My husband wasn't affected at all. And then just after that, I suddenly came out in a very painful rash on my fingertips and my feet,
So can I
which was really.
I just want to interrupt. So initially you had these funny feelings, and was it in your whole body or certain areas only?
Sharing my whole body. It felt like I had tiny little spiders crawling all over me. It was the most weird thing in the world.
And then how long between that and the rash actually appearing?
It was about 2 months, Sherry. Suddenly I just got these horrible, painful bumps all over my fingers and my feet. And that gave me a huge fright. I thought, my goodness, now is it eczema? Is it contact dermatitis? So I went to a dermatologist, and he battled to identify exactly what it was. He eventually said it was unspecified dermatitis. Put me on cortisone. You go and buy all these expensive creams. I really tried, and nothing helped. And then after about 6 months, it suddenly disappeared.
Oh, sure. Okay. And
So,
were you on oral cortisone as well, or just the cortisone cream for the rash?
Sherry, I was on cortisone cream and oral cortisone.
Okay. And the next step in the journey?
Okay, that disappeared, that rash, thank goodness. And after then, and it was probably another 6 months later, my knee started swelling. That was probably early 2017. For no apparent reason, no injury, my knee swelled up. I went to my GP immediately, and he drained my knee of fluid a couple of times, which was absolutely excruciating. I have a pretty high pain threshold, but honestly, that was just the most dreadful experience. He did it about 3 times. That didn't help. So he then referred me to an orthopedic surgeon who took one look at my knee and decided that it was a problem with my meniscus, which is basically a piece of cartilage or cushion in the knee. He strongly recommended keyhole surgery, which I honestly didn't know any better, Sherry. In retrospect, I should have perhaps waited a while or got a second opinion. But I believed that I needed surgery at that time. I went ahead with it, and I did not recover from that. I was completely man down, and my knee was actually worse. It kept on swelling. So
the op itself was, you went in and your knee was sore and painful and swollen. You went into the op with that, but you came out and you had those same symptoms but worse.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think perhaps, the keyhole surgery added to the inflammation.
Yeah.
In retrospect, now that I know what I've got, the inflammation is a huge problem in my life. I think it added to that, and I just didn't recover properly at all. It was very, very depressing. I was desperate. So yeah, that was the start of it, Sherry, and a very bad experience, in my opinion.
So when you say, Jan, that you were battling, how did it actually at this stage now, where you didn't know what you were dealing with, but you just had this very sore knee, how did it affect your life?
Well, Sherry, it affected my job. I couldn't drive. I was hobbling around on crutches. I was trying to be brave. I was taking painkiller after painkiller. Eventually, I had to go back to work. And I really battled. Luckily, I'm in a job where I sit in front of the computer. I don't have to move around a lot, and I've got a very accommodating boss with very flexible hours, and I do a lot of work from home as well. But that was very difficult for me. I tried hard with rehabilitation exercises. I went to a biokineticist, and I honestly just couldn't cope with any of the exercises he gave me. I was in such pain, and he couldn't understand why. He said I shouldn't be, after an op like that, I should be up and running, basically, which didn't happen.
Sure. Okay, so then after, how long did you survive with this pain before you decided to do something else?
It was about 2 or 3 months, Sherry. And I then went back to the orthopedic surgeon in desperation. I said to him, I'm just not getting better. And he then recommended that I see a rheumatologist. And he referred me to one near Cape Town, where I went to. And he then diagnosed me with rheumatoid arthritis. And he put me on medication, methotrexate once a week, and cortisone and anti-inflammatories. So I came home and I just diligently took the medication. I went for a follow-up visit because I was still really suffering. My other joints were getting sore then as well. And he said to me, well, the treatment isn't working.
Oh, wow.
So then I went back to my GP, who I trust implicitly. I've known him I've been going to him for over 20 years, and he knows me very well. And I remember just sitting there and saying to him, I don't know what to do. I'm now desperate. Please help. And he said, oh, my dear, there's a rheumatologist who lives quite close to you, half an hour away. I didn't know about him. Amazing old guy. The first time I saw him, I just clicked. We formed a wonderful connection, and he then started with the blood tests, the chest x-rays. He really thought it was reactive arthritis, reactive rheumatoid. He kept me on the medication. He just upped the dosage a bit, and I have been seeing him.
It was the same med, just increased the dose.
He increased the dose of the methotrexate. He also increased the dose of the cortisone, and he put me on a different anti-inflammatory.
Okay.
And also stressed to me the importance. He had a lovely chat about diet, which I was trying to be careful with anyway, but he basically reaffirmed, looking at it as a whole, you have to change your lifestyle kind of outlook, which I really appreciated. So I have been with him ever since.
And so I want to get back to the lifestyle changes, but before we do that, Jan, what are the horrible side effects that you experience from the medications, if any?
Sherry, the methotrexate I take once a week. I pick a day. He said to me, pick a Sunday or pick a Monday, whatever it may be, because to overdose with it, sometimes we forget when we've taken our medication. Well, I tend to. So I pick a Monday, and I take it on a Monday, because if I overdose on methotrexate, it can be dangerous. The side effects will be worse. So I pick a Monday, I take the methotrexate. I am on prednisone every day, and the side effects, okay, I'm on anti-inflammatories as well, because the inflammation levels in my body are too high, and that can be dangerous. So I take those drugs, and I do have side effects. I bruise very, very easily. My skin is very thin, Sherry. I can just brush against a doorway and I will have a mark on my skin. So I've got to slow down and be careful. The methotrexate makes me a little bit nauseous, but there are ways to cope with that. And it's certainly not nauseous all the time. It's the day I take it and the day after.
Okay.
So those are the main side effects, is the bruising. And I just have to be very careful and not so clumsy. Otherwise, I end up looking absolutely horrific, especially on my arms.
I'm sure. Do you, for the nausea, just to give our listeners an idea of, they might be battling as well with nausea. What do you do to relieve the nausea?
Sherry, I've always found that ginger helps. What I do is I will drink hot water and just put a knob of fresh ginger in it, with maybe a squeeze of lemon juice. Ginger is actually great. I try and go the natural route. I don't take any extra drugs. I try not to. For instance, I will not take prescribed medication for nausea, because I prefer to do that the natural way, because it is not that severe.
Yeah.
Also, I am, as a pain control medication, or shall we say, what would you say? What is the word for it? For pain control, I prefer to use cannabis oil. That helps for me, but in tablet form, capsule form, at night. I don't like to take a lot of prescribed painkillers. Codeine, I know, is very habit forming. It affects me quite badly, and I found the cannabis oil really does work for me. One at night, I don't wake up as often with pain in my knees or my hips or feet. So that personally is what I prefer.
Yeah, yeah. And just to from a personal side, my husband also has inflammatory issues, and he also takes cannabis oil, which has helped incredibly with his pain and his inflammation. And he also suffers from nausea, where we do exactly the same as you do. We go the natural route and we use ginger in all its forms. As well as that, we eat a lot of anti-inflammatory foods, which I think is very important. Our diet can affect inflammation, and we unknowingly can eat the wrong things. So I just wanted to confirm that what you do is actually also what we do. So, and it's very effective. You don't have to use more medication. You can find a natural alternative.
Absolutely, I agree with that, Sherry. The diet to me is incredibly important, but one doesn't have to deprive oneself. You know, when you say diet, people get scared. I really try to cook most of our meals myself. I know where the food comes from. I grow a lot of herbs and a lot of veggies. So I go and pick out the garden, and that gives me a lot of pleasure. So just being aware, I think it's with me, it's more of an awareness of what I put into my body. But luckily, I really enjoy those kinds of foods. And also, I mean, I'm not going to live a life of deprivation because I'm just really not that way inclined. I balance things. I know if I drink wine, I'm going to suffer the next day. I will every now and again have wine because I love it. So I substituted, I drink whiskey and water, which doesn't affect me.
Okay.
So, you know, as far as drinks are concerned, you can still have, I can still have a couple of drinks because I enjoy it. I can still eat really, really good food if I make the right choices. I have a chart on my fridge, acid, alkaline. I try and eat more alkaline foods. I think they say, 80% alkaline, 20% acid. I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, Sherry. But a balance with everything.
Yeah, so I agree with you. You know, the whole nutrition that we put into our bodies is very important. So you've mentioned what you put into your body. What else affects or maybe positively influences your rheumatoid arthritis when it comes to general lifestyle?
Sherry, I think exercise for me works incredibly well, but I have had to modify what I do in the gym. I do weight training. I have done weight training for over 30 years. I had to suddenly rethink the whole weight training thing because I couldn't lift as heavy weights as I used to.
Yeah.
But that's also, look, I mean, the fact is it's also age related. I mean, we lose muscle mass as we get older. But for me, exercise is incredibly important. It doesn't matter what exercise you do. One has to find an exercise that you enjoy, whether it's walking, whether it's cycling, whatever you can manage and feels comfortable. But for me in particular, I try and concentrate on keeping my muscles very strong. Yes. And it's not, I work around the sore bits, like my knees are really sore, Sherry, so I cannot do any impact apart from gentle treadmill. Okay. That's fine for me. But, you know, one has to listen to one's body, and I try and keep strong. If I don't go to gym, I don't feel good. I'm not in a good headspace.
And just a question about so when it comes to exercise, the pain that you experience is mainly in your joints, not in your muscles? Or is there some pain in your muscles as well?
Sure, sometimes, yes. You know, I do get quite a few muscle cramps, but I think that is when I forget to drink enough liquids, dehydration perhaps. Yeah, it's mainly in my joints, Sherry, honestly. Sometimes I think I'm going to go to gym, and then I think, no, I'm too sore today, so I actually just leave it. There are days when I honestly can't do much, then I relax and don't feel guilty about it. My body then obviously needs a rest. It's being aware of what one can do and what one can't do. I also have a little trick to keep a positive mindset. If I'm really sore and start to get a bit depressed, I actually just say to myself, oh, no, you sore because you had a really good gym workout or something like that, which is, you know, it's just my little trick of feeling good again. Like, yeah, it's probably from gym that I'm so sore. I know I'm feeling myself, but that keeps you going when you're feeling particularly down about it.
That's actually quite clever. The process is called reframing an issue. So you're taking what actually is happening and you're looking at it in a completely different way. And so if it works for you and it's not going to harm anybody else, reframing is a wonderful way to keep yourself positive. So
well, it's a bit of a joke between me and my husband. You know, you'll see me limping. He'll say, what's wrong? I said, gee, I'm just like leg pressed, like 50 k's aside or something, and we have a bit of a laugh about it.
Yeah, and that sense of humor will always lift the soul as well. In addition, Jan, to diet, to exercise, to living a balanced lifestyle, are there any other things that and having a sense of humor and reframing, are there any other things that you have found beneficial as far as your lifestyle is concerned?
Sherry, actually having trust and absolute faith in whatever health practitioner you are seeing, I think that is incredibly important. I don't want to over Google. That is just so scary. I don't do that. I used to. I've obviously I'm informed about the disease I've got. I have found out a lot about it, but I have absolute trust in my rheumatologist. The medication, eventually, he got the balance right. It definitely helps my symptoms. I know it's not curable. There is no known cure for rheumatoid arthritis. So it is basically managing the symptoms and trusting the person who is actually treating you. You have to find someone like that. And to me, that helps me maintain a positive mindset.
Yeah. So you trust them as a person as well as you trust their treatment.
Yes, we spent half our sessions, actually 3/4 of our sessions, chatting about other things, Sherry. He said to me from the start, I know I talk a lot, but I need to establish a relationship with you and get to know you.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
I think so. I will mention that he's over 80 years old and he's incredible.
Oh, wow. How amazing. The old school doctor, obviously.
Absolutely, and he has a wonderful naughty sense of humor, Sherry. We laugh a lot.
I think that is kind of a dying breed, and that many of the more modern doctors battle with the time, so they don't have time actually to build a relationship. You come in, you tell them what your symptoms are, they write a script, and out you go. And I think that's
really Sherry, I've had a major problem with that in the past, where you are so rushed, you literally don't feel like a person. I've had that experience, and that is actually to me quite humiliating. Please don't treat me like that. That's the feeling I got, where just it's so rushed, it's so busy. I know life is rushed, I know it's busy, but that is why I have really formed a relationship with this very, very qualified man, and I like the fact that he is old school. That appeals to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you know, for the listeners out there, if you are doubting either the treatment or you're feeling rushed, to try and find another medical practitioner that you will click with. And the other thing maybe is to get the second opinion. If you are wary of either the treatment or the diagnosis, there's no harm in getting a second opinion at all. And most doctors are very open to the fact that, you know, you can do that. So what you're looking for is certainty. Certainty of the diagnosis, certainty that your treatment is working, and the way you get there is through having a good relationship. That's what I'm kind of hearing from you, Jan.
Absolutely, sure. To me, that is very important after the experiences I had leading up to diagnosis and just after diagnosis. So I had to find someone I trusted. I do believe in proven medical science, but it must be explained to the patient.
Yes.
What it's going to do to your body. As far as possible, the side effects as well, Sherry. I will also mention that I get sick a lot. I pick up every cold or sinus infection because my immune system is being suppressed by the methotrexate. I try and be careful not to go near people who have serious infections because it could have a very, very bad impact on my health.
Yeah.
But that is one of the horrible things. That's one of the side effects of perhaps the drugs I'm on. Is I do pick up a lot of colds, so I have to be careful.
Yeah, because your immune system is compromised. Because of an overactive immune system, you have to take medication to suppress that. But then that opens you to all the little bugs in the world.
Absolutely, it's a bit of a catch-22 situation, Sherry. I don't quite know how to get around it. I just try and, as I say, I try and keep as healthy as I can, diet-wise, exercise, and not dwelling on it too much. I tend to take things as they come. I'm aware of taking supplements, and I do some every now and again when I remember take a multivitamin in case it works.
Yeah.
In case it can just, you know, maybe.
Yeah. So what has your illness taught you?
Sherry, the main thing it's taught me that we all go through life. Well, I used to go through life thinking, you know, bad things have happened to me in the past and I've dealt with them, but we tend to think we're invincible. And life can, for absolutely no known reason and through no fault of one's own, throw you a major curveball.
Yeah.
I think it's taught me to make the most of and appreciate the good things that I do have in my life. And there are many. You suddenly start realizing how many good things there are. Also, just appreciating the people who care about me and who I really care about. I also have had to conserve my energy. I never used to do that. I used to rush around like a madwoman trying to achieve too much. I've had to conserve my energy so that I feel I have energy for the important things. So I don't waste too much time on situations or people who repeatedly cause me unhappiness. It's okay to withdraw a little bit. I used to be a people pleaser. I'm not so much that way inclined anymore. I also have realized that it's okay to be a bit selfish and take time out for myself. I don't have to feel guilty about that.
So you've put a lot of boundaries in place as a result of your illness. That what it sounds like to me is the many positive things in your life you're now appreciating a lot more because your health has been a bit compromised and it made you realize not to take things for granted. Is that, am I hearing it right?
You've heard it absolutely correctly, Sherry. That is something I had to do because otherwise the relationships, my closer relationships, were going to suffer because of that. We can't spread ourselves too thin. I have to spend a lot of energy. But I work. I love working. I need to work. That's good for me. So my work is important and I enjoy what I do. but you can't, as I say, spread yourself too thin. It doesn't work, especially if you're suffering. If you saw a lot of the time, you're automatically going to be a little bit more grumpy. So I have had to put boundaries in place where I keep the good energy for the people closest to me.
Absolutely. And so it kind of moves into the next question of not only what you have learned from this illness, but what particular gifts have come as a result of you being ill with rheumatoid arthritis?
Sherry, one of the gifts for me personally is I used to dwell on the past, and then one tends to feel sad about things that have happened. Worry about the future. I used to do that a lot. I try not to do that anymore. I can't change the past. I don't know what the future holds. I tend to make the most of every single day. I just do my best in the present moment. I also find I'm conscious of trying to be a little bit more kind, being more aware of other people and their problems, and a little bit more understanding than I used to be. There is always someone worse off. That is the first thing I've learned. May I carry on to the second thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Also, I think a sense of being grateful. I have been extremely fortunate in many areas of my life. My husband, he's been just absolutely incredible. He has understood. He's been my rock, if you want to call him that. Also appreciating my incredible sons. I mean, I've always appreciated them, but I think you have more a sense of gratefulness that they've turned into really decent human beings. Despite the mistakes I made sometimes along the way, bringing them up. I mean, we all do.
Yes, we all
but yeah, absolutely. And my daughter-in-law and my beautiful grandchildren. I'm so lucky, Sherry. I have that. I also have friends like you who I absolutely treasure. I can be myself with them. And I don't often, sometimes I don't see someone for 3 months, 6 months, but when I do see them, I'm conscious of spending quality time with them and making the most of my time with all these very, very special people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, you know, there are lots of lovely words that you've used throughout this this interview, which really spin my wheels, obviously, but they, you know, the kindness, being able to set boundaries, having no guilt, looking at being proactive, positivity. And a big one, which you haven't actually mentioned, but you've implied, is authenticity. You know, you have to be completely authentic in who you are, how you're living your life, what your illness allows you to do and not to do. And the only way really to manage it all in a healthy way is to be entirely authentic. And so thank you firstly for bringing up all those beautiful words. Is there anything else that are there any other gifts that you would like to maybe mention?
Sherry, I think those are the main ones.
Okay.
But also I think what it is, probably to put it in a nutshell, the greatest gift is actually being aware that I am very lucky. There's always someone worse off.
Yeah.
And I don't know what is going to happen in the future. I do not want to think about that. One can't predict anything. It's that sense of living in the present. And also, Sherry, I will mention as well, it's been a wake-up call for me. I was a little bit, I won't say unconcerned, but a little bit slack about going for certain tests that we all should do, like mole mapping. I go for mole mapping. I had a melanoma 5-6 years ago, which luckily it ended up okay. So I tend to now also remind people, please go for your pap smears, go for your mammograms, just the normal tests we should have done. I have blood tests done every 2 months to check my kidneys, my liver. That also just gives me a little bit of peace of mind, Sherry, the blood tests when they come back okay.
Yeah, and also they can help if the illnesses are picked up earlier. There's much better a treatment option or a much better prognosis, because the diseases are being picked up earlier. Plus, it might limit the time that you're in pain or that you're battling with a certain symptom. If you go for those kind of routine tests, it can maybe lessen the time of discomfort for you, maybe. I don't know.
Absolutely. I truly believe that, Sherry, a lot of these illnesses can be slowed down or through early diagnosis. I think that is the key, and I try now to make people more aware of that.
Yeah. And that's really what we're trying to do through these interviews. Each person has got through their own story. They are bringing to light certain things which have been really important for them to do. And what we're trying to do is make sure that people are really looking after their health and doing the things that we need to do in order to retain that, particularly as you and I are getting a little bit older and long in the tooth. We can really appreciate being healthy enough to be able to do what we can do. So I'm going to ask you one last question, if I may. Jan, is there anything particular you want to say to people out there, not necessarily people who are suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, but maybe so? Is there anything particular that you feel you want, that's on your heart, that you'd like to say?
Yes, Sherry, I would. No matter what condition you're suffering from, we all need backup from someone or a couple of people. Find that someone or find those people who you can be authentic with. And, sometimes just going out for a coffee and chatting, maybe not about your disease or your condition, just lifts your spirits. Do that. Get out there. Reach out to people you trust implicitly, and accept their backup. I would like to say that it is incredibly important. We cannot do everything on our own. We sometimes need people just to give us a little boost, and basically just not even to say in words, but to make us feel it's going to be okay, and we do appreciate you the way you are.
That is wonderful, and thank you for sharing that last tidbit, because very often we concentrate on the medical opinions, the scientific research, the treatments, and the more human side of actually being cared for and being valued is often overlooked. So I thank you, Jan, firstly for the time of your valuable time of giving us during this interview, but also for touching on a number of really important issues that relate to health, whether it's our lifestyle, whether it's the more sort of touchy-feely things like living in gratitude and authenticity and treasuring the people in our lives. You've given an incredibly balanced viewpoint on how to cope with an illness and not allow it to control you or your life, but to make it part of your life that you learn to live with and learn to live positively and proactively with. And so thank you for being so able to speak so eloquently and so honestly about your illness, your journey, the journey to diagnosis, and how you have been living for the last 18 months or so after your diagnosis. So I do hope that the many the listeners and viewers out there will have received some benefit from listening to this podcast. And if you have any questions or queries, comments that you'd like to make, I always welcome them. You can send it to my email address, which is sherryforsyth@gmail.com, spelled CHERRIFORSYTH at gmail.com, or you can go onto my website and see all the other videos of health-related people that I've interviewed, and that is www.sherryforsythcoaching.com. And I thank you, listeners, for taking the time to be with us. And again, Jan, thank you for joining us for this interview.